I hate Minecraft. Over the past year, Mojang has totally changed up how Minecraft handles its updates. Instead of releasing one a year pretty much every summer, we are now under the drop system. This is good in a lot of ways, namely that we now get more consistent content throughout the year. I'm still personally quite mixed on the whole drops versus updates thing, but I got like 3 videos on that, I need to move on. Instead, we're gonna hate in a different way today. Due to the drops being smaller than normal updates, I've missed out on the opportunity to make nitpick videos on each drop. That's because oftentimes I only have 1 or maybe 2 nitpicks to give per drop, and that would be a very short video. It's been a long time since our last Minecraft nitpicks episode though, as we had a general one in 2023 and a tricky trials one when that update was released. So now that there has been a decent amount of drops for the game, I thought it'd be fun to give my nitpicks for all of the drops released since 1.21. These will be issues or missed opportunities I had with each of the drops. As the name nitpicks suggests though, these are quite small issues, as I think they've done a pretty good job with these drops so far. But of course, these won't just be my nitpicks. As always with the series, I also asked you all to give me some from the community tab. I'll be including the ones I think make for the most interesting discussion, not necessarily the ones I agree with. I don't have a ton to talk about today, but that's because I've been working on a bunch of other big videos and I had to finish some homework for college, so hopefully you all still enjoy this shorter video. And if you don't like it, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right in. So for my nitpicks, I think it makes sense to go in order of the drops releases. So starting off with the bundles of bravery drop, I mean there's not really much to say on this one. It was literally just adding bundles, and I think bundles are cool. So the first sizable drop would be the garden awakens, and I do actually have some nitpicks on this one. Originally I would have talked about the creaking always dying during the day, even if he was named. But luckily this nitpick was actually changed, so creakings will stay alive if they have a name tag. I figured I should still mention it just in case some people weren't aware about this. Anyway, the main issues come from the pale garden itself, as I feel like the biome is a bit underwhelming. First off, I still think, even though it was updated, the biome is way too small most of the time. Sure, you can still get some pretty giant pale gardens, but most of the time when you find them, they'll just end up being... That's especially brutal because the creaking will only spawn if you have a creaking heart there, and with the biome being sometimes incredibly tiny, there will oftentimes not be a heart anywhere. I feel like every pale oak biome should at least have 1 tree with a creaking heart minimum, since resin stuff may be the reason someone wants to go there. But luckily for the biome size, it was tweaked. I wouldn't say fixed, as there are still several pale gardens that are too small, but at least there was an attempt. My other criticism for the biome though is just that it feels like there should be more to it. There are plenty of exclusive and fantastic blocks here. Obviously pale oak is great, but pale moss is also very helpful along with the eye blossoms. With that said, I still think there was room to add more. In pretty much every video I mentioned this biome, I brought up the idea of adding the white pumpkin from Minecraft story mode. Not only would that fit the biome and be a really cool block, but also the YouTuber episode was my favorite. I also think that on top of additional plant life, they could have tweaked woodland mansions here to have a pale oak color palette. Maybe they just didn't want to go through the effort since a mansion spawning in one of these tiny biomes is incredibly rare, but I think it would have been cool. Just some structures in general probably could have helped this biome be a bit more distinct. Next up on the update list is the spring to life drop. This one was a lot less focused, but I think there are still some clear enough points to talk about. This one is definitely a personal gripe, but I still don't love just how much leaf litter fills the floor of forests. I mean, obviously it makes sense to be here and I'm not against its inclusion. With how much of the floor is taken up by leaf litter though, I feel like it makes the biome much uglier than it was in previous updates. Obviously I could just break all of the leaf litter, but I am far too lazy for that. I haven't really heard anyone else have this issue, so I might just be insane, but I think they went a bit overboard. Is it maybe more realistic now? Sure, but as far as I'm aware, there are no creepers in real life, so I don't care about realism. Mario, look out! The other main nitpick I have for this update is more like a missed opportunity rather than a real issue. My last Minecraft video took a look at some Bedrock exclusive features, and in that, I mentioned that on Bedrock Edition, you can actually bone meal most single tall flowers. This allows them to create copies of themselves regardless of the biome, which is quite helpful in farming dyes and the flower itself. Since the Spring to Life drop was all about plants, I feel like this would have been a good time to bring this to Java, especially because they've been doing a lot of parody stuff these past few updates, like adding lead boats to Java for example. On to our next drop with the happy ghast, and this is another one that I think they mostly nailed. After all, it was pretty much just focused on one feature, but with that said, there is a little bit I think could be improved on with the happy ghast. Mostly, I think it really could use a little speed boost. Obviously, the happy ghast main use is not for travel, but rather building. When you're up close to a build, the current speed works quite well. Moving slower is a good thing here as it lets you be a bit more accurate with your block placements. But when you aren't at the build yet, it feels kind of miserable.
Go! Go!
I think adding a sort of sprinting option would be nice, so if you hit the sprint button, the ghast would move at a slightly faster pace. I'm not asking for elytra speed, but at least getting close to player movement speed would be appreciated. That way we have the slower movement good for building, and faster movement to make the ghast feel slightly less tedious. I also think it would be neat if maybe beacons could affect the ghast, so you could give it speed, resistance, or whatever else you may want. Overall, the happy ghast is implemented pretty well, I just think their movement could be a bit better. Now believe it or not, I did manage to come up with a nitpick for the drop that was literally just adding a wolf painting in the lava chicken music disc. Obviously, the wolf painting is perfection, I have no notes. Lava Chicken, on the other hand, I do have one tiny problem with personally. The disc itself is decent, and I think if anything from the movie was going to be added, this song does make sense. I also think the way you have to get it is pretty creative, requiring you to kill a chicken jockey. That also fits well with the Minecraft movie because of the whole chicken jockey. However, the thing that annoys me is the fact that you have to kill the baby zombie before the chicken to get the drop. This might have to do with how the game is coded, but I think this requirement is mildly annoying. Whenever I run into a chicken jockey, I often kill the chicken first just because it has less health. If that happens though, you won't get the lava chicken drop, and I think they should probably change that. Maybe it's supposed to be part of the challenge to keep the chicken alive, but I don't think it would change too much if both the chicken or the baby zombie could drop the disc. And the final drop for me to talk about before moving to the comments is whatever this copper drop is going to be called. Yeah, I'm making this before the full release, so there's a decent chance a good chunk of this stuff gets changed. Still though, I thought these were worth bringing up just in case they aren't changed. Now I have heard a lot of people have issues with how the copper golem works mechanically. It seems most are on board with its sorting system properties, but it also seems like Mojang needs to iron out some of the bugs to make it work at its fullest potential. I haven't done much experimenting at all with them though, so my nitpicks are going to come from elsewhere. In this update, Mojang added copper armor and tools, and
I mean, it's kinda cool.
this acts as a new tier of gear between stone and iron, but honestly, that doesn't seem necessary. I know this is coming from an experience point of view, but even for newer players, I feel like getting from stone to iron does not take that long at all. This addition sort of feels like a response to those videos that think Minecraft needs more steps in its progression, when I really don't think it does. I'm not against the features being added, I would just hope they would have more of a use, I guess. The player should get struck by lightning whenever they wear this. My other minor nitpick about this stuff is the fact that the armor and tools don't oxidize. If this stuff is going to be mostly useless from a gameplay perspective, giving it a unique aesthetic property would have been cool. That would have given us some more possible armor colors, so maybe if they tied the look of the armor to its durability, that would have been neat. This also extends to the new copper horse armor, though it wouldn't be tied to durability since horse armor can't break. I guess if they let mobs spawn with copper tools, then at least we can smelt it to get copper nuggets in Skyblock worlds. But that's enough of my nitpicks, it's time to judge you all from the community tab. Like I said at the start, we got a bit of a smaller list this time, but I think we have a stronger quality in these nitpicks. With that said, there are still a few in here that I disagree with being issues. I think it makes sense to go in order of the drops again, so we're going to be starting with the bundles of bravery drop. Oh, we actually got one this time. Legendary 82 says, maybe outdated, but I think the bundle cannot carry more than one tool or armor is insane, especially because that's one of the main things that take up inventory slots. This is not only our first comment, but also the first one I'm gonna disagree with. I could sort of understand the concern, but I personally don't have an issue with this. It makes sense to keep the bundle's mechanics consistent between all items, and I also can't say I ever have a ton of tools filling my inventory. I'm sure there's some maniac out there that likes to carry 23 shovels with them, but I feel like most of the time I just carry the tools I plan on using, and the more niche stuff like flint and steel and brushes go in my ender chest. I think the way the bundle works with non-stackable items right now is perfectly reasonable. On to the Garden Awakens. I seem to cover most of the stuff people were commenting on for myself, but there was one comment I wanted to include. Abstract Calamity says, I really think the Pale Garden should be able to generate without a dark oak forest attached to it. Also add white pumpkins, please Mojang, I'm begging you. First off, another white pumpkin fan, love to see it. But the reason I included this was because of the first bit. I'm honestly not sure how I feel about this one. I kind of like how Pale Gardens generate with roof forests as a sort of spooky contrast. At the same time though, I wouldn't hate Pale Gardens generating on their own. I would say this isn't a nitpick for me, but if it was changed so that Pale Gardens generate by themselves, I also wouldn't complain. Whatever they have to do to make the biome bigger, I guess. And you know what, since this drop segment was so short, let's go ahead and throw in one that doesn't really tie into any specific drop. KNE Pepper 7665 says, I wish they would be more transparent about what they're doing with experiments. I, maybe controversially, think the villager trade rebalance would be fun with giving different biome librarians different books. It would add more of an incentive to travel travel the world and set up multiple bases to more easily get the villagers you want. They also want those minecart experiments, which I don't particularly care about, but I know others want. I'm not even saying that they need to add these immediately, but giving us a little more information on if/when these features will be added would be nice. Alongside drops, Mojang has added a lot of experimental features. We talked about the villager changes a long time ago now, where librarian trades would be based on the biome and a few other things. The minecart changes were also something that got people very excited, where we could let minecarts build up speed and launch things. Unfortunately, like this comment says, Mojang has been very unclear on when and if these features are going to be added. I made my villager rebalance video in 2023, and since then, the most that came from it were the new explorer maps given to cartographers in the Spring to Life drop. The minecart changes, which have got me really excited, have been extremely quiet, and that makes me pretty sad. I get that there's a lot to consider with the minecart stuff because it would affect a lot of contraptions, but I hope they get onto adding it sometime soon. Oh wait a minute, it seems I missed a line at the bottom of this comment. Also, I love sowing discourse, so my obligatory hot take is that phantoms are actually good and I love them. Onto the Spring to Life drop, we once again only got one comment from Alonso Chiampi who says, I personally would love to see hot and cold variants for sheeps. Now this comment could mean one or two things. They could be asking for sheep reskins like the cow, pig, and chicken got, in which case I would agree. It does feel a bit sad to leave the sheep out even though it's one of the classic mobs. Now the sheep's main color does change between hot, cold, and neutral biomes, but that's not nearly as exciting. Now the other thing this comment could be talking about are the removed default sheep colors that were present in the snapshots. Initially, sheep were planned to spawn as blue colored in cold biomes and reddish colors in warm biomes. People were overall not a huge fan of this change, and I personally have to agree with that. It just feels a bit too unrealistic. But as far as I'm aware, there are no creepers in real life, so I don't care about realism. Mario, look out! I didn't say that. For the Chase the Skies drop, we got one from Mario World P-Switch sprite who says, the fact that you can craft a dried ghast. Why? I get it's for older worlds with large parts of the nether explored so players aren't kicked out of the ghast stuff, but piglins already give you dried ghast when bartering, which is much more appropriate. The recipe makes sense. Not really. Ghast tears are only known to regenerate life, not create it. Welp, I think it's about time to expand on my theory. My game theory! Yes, ghast tears have been shown to regenerate life, and that is still consistent with the Happy Ghast recipe. Take a look at it again. It's made up of 8 ghast tears and a piece of soul sand. As the name implies, these blocks contain souls, so the ghast tears are reviving the soul within the block to create the happy ghast. But that's just a fact. Thanks for watching. Okay, even if this wasn't consistent with lore or whatever, I wouldn't care. I think it fits the game and I like having the option. But now into our final drop, which is currently the unnamed copper drop. This actually got the most comments so far, which I guess makes sense because it's the one that's the freshest on everyone's mind. Keep in mind that since this isn't done, there's a chance the stuff does get changed before release. Quickball Plays 1867 says, copper golems need higher reach. Most people stack chests, but for the auto sorter, they can only reach up one block. This is a tweak that I would definitely like to see. I personally stack my chests in all of my bases, so if I'm gonna have a copper golem running around, I'd like it if he could reach the top chest as well. I think he's fine because he'll still work great in farm settings as an item sorter, but I'd like it if he could help around my base too. I mean, my organization is just awful. Our next comment comes from Gamer99 who says, for the copper drop, I'm quite sad that they didn't add in the copper buttons, despite it being a feature that was announced alongside the copper golem back in 2021. What's even more sad is that they just finished with the update. Granted, the copper golem's functionality was changed, but that didn't really mean it should have been left out, especially from the update of copper variety. Yeah, this was honestly a bit surprising. I'm very happy with the change to the copper golem since I think it organizing chests is much better than its initial randomization mechanics, but I still think the copper buttons should have been added. Even if the golems don't press them, I think they would still work great for decoration and even redstone. I think if the amount of time a button is pressed changes based on its oxidization, it could end up being really helpful. It's just weird to see so much copper stuff get added to this drop, and the one copper feature that was announced with the golem just isn't here. Speaking of those other copper additions, we got a few talking about them as well. Dabom GT says, they forgot to add a copper campfire, green campfire. I think it could look very cool in a spooky build. I also think that'd be a pretty nice addition. Not something I desperately need or anything, but in the right build, it could look really cool. And the final nitpick for today comes to us from Noimo HD who says, the fact that we don't have a redstone lantern. We already have a torch for yellow, normal, blue, soulfire, red, redstone, and green copper. Yet for some reason, Mojang hasn't given us a matching combination for lanterns. I think this would be a really nice way to add details to builds. I feel like getting a good red lighting source that isn't redstone torches would be a great addition, and I would use it a ton. I think it would also be neat if it could be turned off with redstone too, so we could have turned off lanterns. I'm always a big fan whenever they add new lighting blocks, as I feel like the pool is still more limited than I'd like it to be, so more colors of lantern would make me very happy. But anyways, that's it for this video. Are you mad I didn't make this video about the new LEGO Batman game instead? Let me know in the comments. Sorry to keep this video so short, but hopefully you all still enjoyed it. I'm working on a few bigger videos in the background right now, and I think you all are going to really enjoy them when I'm able to get them finished. But before I go, I've got to thank my members being Fredbear's Diner, Schmendy, Maidzio2, Magnus Larsalot, Trifector, Luma, Tibby, Drybones, Mario Master 101, Hippopotamus, Levi Strux, Nuclear, Cassie Channel, Blessed Tiger, Yanni the Duck, Wyatt Derpy, Trader Mo, Mevins 2001, Kid Trunks 15, Enchanted Skull, SMA, B Major 2003, Arson the Raboot, Sir Moosty, Belandor, Cinder CC, Jade Avery, Pruncel Clone, Thicky Reiki, Ungenio TM, CW McCain, JubeTube Tesseract, Mr. McMahon 5702, Jameson Pageson, Golden Sand 15, Z Frost, Stuffy Ant, Just X, Concanut Keep, and Christian Flattery Sequel Edition. But anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.